I know what I'm about to say is going to get under a lot of people's skin, but I feel it's something that needs to be said. The First Amendment needs to be updated or revised in some fashion. Now, why am I saying that? Well, you need look no further than the amendment itself. So I'm just going to read it out to you here. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, and this is very important, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Now, I know I butchered that pretty terribly, but basically what it's saying is you have the right, the absolute right to freedom of speech and of the press. You can say whatever you want. It has no context of whether that is a lie or whether what you're saying is harmful. And you can assemble, and as long as you're assembling peaceably, and that can be interpreted extremely broadly, you could, for instance, in this country, it is legal for neo-Nazis to get together and to hold a little peaceful, quote-unquote, assembly where they peaceably express their speech, their freedoms, as they might call it, and petition the government for redresses. I wonder what they mean by that. Well, to be fair, traditionally, this amendment of itself is a tool through which the people can confront forms of oppression by the government and the ruling majority. And I will not deny that we as feminists and progressives have been able to leverage that right to our advantage. I am not disputing that in any way, shape, and form. It has been an invaluable tool for pushing the progressive agenda forward and making the world a better place for everyone. But, and this is a very big but, recently that right, that privilege that is granted to all of us has been twisted and manipulated by an extreme right-wing agenda to undermine our progressive movement. See, in the past, these people who there are enemies, when they were the status quo, this was irrelevant. Today, you have feminists being harassed online, offline, everywhere. We've done a lot of work to make college campuses a safe space, but it can only go so far. And when you take into account the harassment that was leveled against Anita Sarkeesian and many, many other feminists, and that's just the tip of the iceberg, it becomes very apparent that we have a real fundamental problem here. And that comes right down to number one, the First Amendment itself. Now, the number one defense I've seen of the First Amendment in its current form, or unrestricted freedom of speech, which is basically what these people these right-wingers, they were never for freedom of speech before, when they were bashing the heads-ins of gays and preventing them from getting married and subjugating women in their bodies. Back then, they didn't give a damn about the First Amendment. They didn't care about freedom of expression. It was all about taking advantage of us. Anyway, I digress. I'm letting myself get distracted here from the main topic and the most important thing, which is this ridiculous argument that if you're not physically hurting someone, you're not hurting them. That you can't hurt them without physically hurting them. And that is complete bullshit. And not only that, words don't just hurt, they kill. They murder when abused. When unbridled freedom of speech is abused, and it is abused all the time, people die. So what is the solution, you ask? Well, it's fairly simple. Certain forms of speech should never be tolerated. Homophobia should not be tolerated. Transphobia should not be tolerated. Sexism should not be tolerated. Racism should never be tolerated. Any form of discrimination cannot be tolerated. Tell me, you First Amendment scholars, what is it about these forms of speech that requires them to be protected? And don't give me that slippery slope argument where if we ban one form of speech, then why can't we ban others? And then it's gonna go spiraling out of control, and suddenly no one's gonna have a right to say anything. Blah, 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 blah. Shut up! There was a time when the First Amendment was a great thing for the LBGT community. I'm so angry I can't even talk. The LBGTQ community, and as well as feminists. There was a time when it was of value to us. But now that the tables have turned, now that the establishment is being fundamentally altered from the inside out, and it's a revolution, and I thank everyone for being there for this revolution. We have done amazing work. We are changing the world. But now that tool that we used to push forward these changes that are making our world a better world are being used against us as a weapon, subverted. And we cannot sit idly by while this happens. We have worked too hard. We have pushed too far. We cannot sit back and just take it. Now, even if you think you disagree with me, you might be surprised to find that you actually in many ways do. Looking at some of the recent polls that have come out, a fair percentage of majorities, almost over 50%, agree that certain forms of speech shouldn't be protected. Hate speech in particular. We understand that there needs to be change about how we view the First Amendment. And if you still doubt me, let me put it this way. The Second Amendment, when it was drafted, it was freaking 1800, for Christ's sake, people. 1800. The type of firearms they had then were way different than the ones we have now. And now we have thousands of Americans dying every year. And you want to tell me that that amendment in its current form is still applicable to our society? In many ways, you can turn that on the First Amendment. Like the Second Amendment, the First Amendment is no longer applicable to our society as a whole. It's doing more harm than good in its present form. And that's why I'm calling on all of us involved in this movement, this progressive and feminist movement. This is a call to arms. Not real arms, mind you. But a call to arms to change the First Amendment, to amend the First Amendment. I don't care if we have to throw it out and put a new amendment in there, Amendment 1.1. I don't care. It needs to be changed, or it needs to be nullified, because it's not working anymore. In its present form, it has served its purpose, but our needs as a society have changed fundamentally. And if we don't have the courage to take a stand on this issue, we'll never win this battle. Thank you for listening. Now, if you want to support this cause, you can like, comment, subscribe, and more importantly, donate to my Patreon. Links forthcoming. I haven't set up a Patreon yet, but it's on my list of things to do. Also, you can follow me on Twitter, @TheFlyingPhallus. And of course, you can support other feminists as well. I want to thank you all for listening, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.